without affecting female reproduction, and without leaving a trail of bodies sufficient to explain the genetic carnage. What if I told you the weapon wasn't a spear or a club? What if the weapon was choice? Because when you eliminate 90% of male bloodlines without killing 90% of men, you're not looking at a war story. You're looking at a mating story. And that story starts with dirt. Around 10,000 years ago, humans did something we'd never done before. We stopped following the food and started growing it. The agricultural revolution sounds boring when you learn it in school. Domestication of wheat, invention of the plow, yawn. But here's what they don't tell you. Agriculture didn't just change what we ate. It changed who we were. For hundreds of thousands of years.
Oh my gosh. So I'm just going to go out on a limb and say men decided this is how we're going to get our food. Now we're going to plant it. That makes sense. Okay, we're going to invent the plow. Now, again, I'm making an assumption, right? But I think I'm fairly safe in doing so. And so they created a world where it was possible for women to say, oh, these guys have a ton of stuff, so I'm going to choose them. And nowadays, with industrialization that happened in the 20th century, 19th century, that has also created a world where I don't need no man and I'm strong and independent. It's fakery, but it is widely believed. Therefore, we are eliminating lots of men because why settle? So situationships prevail, and even just women just not having children at all. If the women aren't having children, then those men aren't having children. And then again, and that means also then that the 20% of men are, maybe less, maybe fewer. Time will tell if we're all still here.
Humans lived as nomadic hunter-gatherers. And in those societies, inequality was hard to maintain. Why? Because you can't accumulate wealth when you're constantly moving. You can't hoard resources when everything you own has to fit on your back. Sure, some people were better hunters, some were smarter, some were stronger, but those advantages largely died with them. Then we planted seeds, and suddenly, for the first time in human history, wealth became storable. A good harvest could be saved, land could be owned, livestock could be bred and passed down, tools, homes, territory, all of it became heritable capital.
I would also say that would mean that people would kind of form more communities because they were staying put. So they weren't like, you go this way, you go this way, you go this way. More of a community. What does that provide? More access to different guys. You're not just traveling with your guy, all the time. Like, we're going to go and hunt for this food. No, you're now in sort of a community and you have access. You can see, you can compare the different guys. You have choice now. Reminds me kind of social media. Social media took that community and expanded it. So now you just don't have all the men in your community, or all the men at your school or at your job or whatever, right? You have every guy looking at your Instagram pictures from all over the world. In your DMs, you can look up other guys. It's like it's taken this and all it's done since industrialization especially has gotten way, way, way more extreme. And it seems like it's not turning back.
And here's the critical part. Once wealth became heritable, inequality became exponential. Think about it. If you inherit land from a successful father, you stay ahead. You can grow more food, support more people, make better tools.
Right.
Your children start even further ahead. Within a few generations, some families control vastly more resources than others, not because they're working harder, but because advantage compounds. Ancient DNA studies show massive genetic turnovers during this period. Farming populations from Anatolia and the Near East spread across Europe, bringing new ancestries that replaced or mixed with indigenous hunter-gatherers. These weren't just migrations, they were demographic expansions driven by an economic revolution. And with that economic revolution came a social one. Archaeological evidence shows the emergence of the first true social hierarchies, larger settlements, differential burial practices, some people buried with wealth, others with nothing. The construction of megalithic tombs that required coordinated labor and marked territorial claims. These weren't just graves, they were declarations of ownership, status, and lineage power. Here's where it connects to our bottleneck. In a world where resources determine survival, access to resources determines reproduction. Studies across diverse human societies, past and present, show the same pattern. Male reproductive success correlates strongly with wealth and status. A wealthy man in an agricultural society doesn't just survive better, he can support multiple wives, more children, and ensure those children survive to reproduce themselves. A poor man, he's lucky to attract one mate, if ever.
Is that his fault? Or his question? It's just a question, YouTube. Is that his fault? Or is she not settling? If he can't pay all my bills, blah, 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 I'm not going to help him gather food. I'm not going to help him milk the livestock. I'm going to be with a man who has a staff to do that for him. I'm not going to be, the mate of some staff member, right? History, they say it doesn't repeat, it rhymes, it repeats. It's all the same. It's like we're on a timeline, but we're on a treadmill because the scenery changes. Some of the customs and the norms change, but the people and their nature don't. It's just like you have the same actors playing the same roles, but the set changes, the costumes change, but everything else doesn't. Why would the overlords, the media, etc., be trying so hard to convince us otherwise if the truth weren't somehow inconvenient for them?
Anthropological data shows this clearly. In societies with wealth accumulation, high-status males average significantly more offspring than low-status males. In some documented cases, elite men fathered children with multiple women, while large percentages of lower-status men never reproduced at all. And women made rational choices. In a world where your children's survival depends on access to food, land, and protection, you choose the mate who can provide those things.
Okay. Well, that's really nice. And it's so kind of him and so generous of him to say that. And maybe I'm jaded, maybe I'm wrong. But if that were true, then why are women making those same choices when children have nothing to do with it? For example, they don't have children. They don't plan to have children. Why would that make a difference? Let's say they're just dating. This is before dating. Dating didn't exist. The idea of dating gives us a whole different set of stats. If you're dating and the only people you're dating are these high value, high status men, it's not like that's what you're needing. Plus, now that the women have earned their rights to work, etc., and be equal to men, why then would they still be aiming for a high value man and saying, I'm not going to settle? I need him to make six figures. I need him to make, whatever astronomical amount. I need him to have this status because I won't settle. The world is full of I'm not going to settle. And it seems like all that time ago, it was no different. I do not believe that these women could not have chosen an average man for their mate. Would life have been harder? Yes. We just don't choose that. You can call that rational. You can call it rational. But I just don't.